to star people. My special guests this evening are, I hope I say this right, Tajinder Gill and Sarah Adams, and he'll correct me, I'm sure. Sarah is, let me read you her bio. Sarah has experienced many things from seeing abductions to seeing angels who aided her. Her awakened consciousness increased as she got older. She experienced the supernatural in past lives in Egypt and Atlantis. Telepathy, weather abnormalities, feeling others' emotions, remote viewing, quantum leaping, and time travel are among the other alternate realities Sarah has endured. She's healed so much and believe every day is a healing journey to greater heights. Sarah works with many clients around the world in what she calls multidimensional life coaching. This includes using homeopathic herbs, supplements, diet, superfoods, detoxing, energy work, and essential oils, visualization, meditation, mediation, subtle energy work, cellular work, and all to heighten the frequency of the temple and precious bodies we've been given. She has made TV appearances on the BBC, Polish TV, The Basis Project, and many others, as well as co-hosting on the Divine Truth Show on Revolution Radio. And of course, that's a great show if y'all haven't tuned in. And Sarah Adams continues to be a major force in the world of enlightenment while healing many around the world. And Taj, you better correct me on your name here, but Tajinder Gill? Okay, I call him Taj. Taj is a radio show host who presents interviews and studies geared to finding the truth about targeted individuals, alien abductees, MILAB, and mind control victims, and to provide answers and support for them. He's the organizer of the upcoming AwakeCon event, which is an event that brings together people from their alternative community to find an answer to the question, why are we here? And his conference website is awakecon.com. So please welcome Taj and Sarah to the show this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. And you did pronounce my name correctly.
So, wonderful. Yeah. I'm glad. And hi there, Sarah. Good evening.
Good evening. And you know that bio, who wrote that bio, by the way?
That must have been Taj. You must have him trained well.
That was me, Sarah.
Thank you, Taj.
He's very good, about getting things done. He's great.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm
Well, hey, you've got one now. You've got a good bio now.
You write an amazing bio. Thank you, Taj.
I've left Sarah speechless.
I'm telling you. Well, we have so much to discuss tonight, but where do you want to start now? I'd like to talk to you both about how you got involved in, first of all, doing the radio show, and what drives you to be doing the radio show in general.
Taj, you can start with that one.
Yeah, I had sort of an idea last year about wanting to do a radio show, and I talked about it with Sarah for a while. And I had already done I hosted for Christine Hart on a couple of her shows when she couldn't do them. She's also on Revolution Radio. Mm-hmm. So I did a few shows already, and I approached Revolution Radio wanting to do a show with Sarah. And asked Sarah because I thought we work quite well together, and I thought we have a good energy together, and it would be a good show. We have quite a lot of knowledge between us. Sarah has a lot of knowledge on the esoteric side, and I have a lot of knowledge after working for a while on the Basis project with Miles Johnston. I did a lot of research and involved in conferences and events with Miles as well. So, we approached Revolution Radio. We did the interview back last Christmas now. It seems a long time ago now to where we are today. But, we started the show in January. We've had some great guests on, and we've still got more great guests coming on as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
awesome.
That's basically how the radio show happened. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you do have a wonderful show. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being a guest on your show. So I will say that you do have a nice chemistry. So that's nice. And how did both of you meet? Was it through the Basis projects? Is that what you mentioned?
Taj actually liked my cooking. That's why. Sorry, go ahead, Taj.
When did I meet Sarah? It's probably about 2.5 years ago. I went to an event, Bases at the Barge, where she spoke with Max and Danielle Verite. I didn't actually meet Sarah there. I met Max. I did speak to Max for a while, but I never actually got to speak to Sarah because it was quite a busy event. But I can't remember the first time we actually spoke. It was probably a couple of years ago now. And we only met last year, just before the Basis conference. So in August last year, probably about a year. So we only met about a year ago. But we were communicating for a while before we actually met, because I was getting, I was helping Sarah get on some radio shows early last year. Because I thought, basically, I connected to Sarah's message and her videos and her blogs, and I thought the message that she was giving out was, I don't know, it sort of made sense, I guess. And so I wanted more people to hear her. So, I tried to get her on a few shows. We were booked on quite a few shows before Max passed away, but a lot of those got cancelled, obviously, after Max passed away. But yeah, that's how we met. That's how we met, really. Yeah.
Well, it's no such thing as a coincidence, right there. I am very sorry about what happened to Max too, and I know it's been rough. I'm sure it was extremely rough on you, Sarah. And I mean, I don't know if you even want to talk about it, and that's okay if you don't. That's fine. But I do say, I only met him a few times, but when I did meet him, I always said to everybody, he was a very good soul. He was a good being in there. And it's just, to me, there just seemed like there was so much weirdness and so many attacks and so much craziness. And you get so targeted when you start communicating and getting out there, especially when you're starting to accelerate and people are starting to pay attention. I'm sure you can all relate to that. So what was your impression of that? Did you find it suspicious, the whole thing that happened to him? If you want to answer, that's fine. It's up to you.
Yes, I do. I won't speak too much about that. I'll allow his mother to take a lead and speak about that. Honestly, we recently did an interview with Max's mother, and she did explain that it was quite suspicious, the circumstances that led to his death.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I thought it was too. And I do know, and I'm pretty sure you probably, I don't know, it seems to me like we've all been under attack to some degree. Those of us who went to the conference, I would say that in some form or another, we have been under some kind of attack. Now, I'm not sure if you have or not, but I know I have in the past. So it hasn't been to that level, but certainly there are things that go on when you're out there and you're communicating. Did you ever find yourself under that? Go ahead.
Yes, I have found myself under attack at certain times, but I found that after going to that conference, some of the people that went to that conference died, including the person who sort of ran the blog White Hat.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, Hemmingson, he was found dead too. Yes, so there was a good few people from that conference that died, and it did seem quite suspicious.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, well, there's definitely all sorts of anomalous things that happen on that timeline insofar as there was a lot of power there, a lot of energy and a lot of communication. And I guess my question would be, and Taj, what about you? Do you feel like you ever get under attack? I know you've been researching and also, being involved with the basis projects, that's pretty heavy too, right? So do you find yourself being targeted at all?
Not so much these days. Probably the worst attacks were probably sort of after Max passed away, I think. I think the 3-4 months, maybe even 6 months after that, I think both me and Sarah were attacked quite heavily, especially when Max's story hit the mainstream media and it went sort of worldwide, as it went viral, I guess you could say.
It did. I was really surprised to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people attacked us. I don't really know why. I know why they attacked Sarah, obviously because she was, close to Max. But obviously because I'm friends with, Sarah, I got a lot of attacks as well because I was sticking up for Sarah in a lot of cases, and so people attacked me as well for that. So, but not so much now.
So people actually were attacking you on a verbal or physical level, insofar as just being jerks, but not energetically.
I was attacked energetically as well. I had a couple of weird experiences. I think just before my very first radio show, I sort of lay down on the sofa and closed my eyes, and I saw somebody else staring back at me, sort of like in my head.
Wow.
And I've had a couple of experiences where I'm pretty sure I'm being remote viewed. I can sort of pick up on that I'm being remote viewed and things like that. But I did get like migraines and little things like that. But that was the big one, really, where someone, I don't know what they were trying to get in my head or something.
Well, you have to be careful of that. And I don't have to tell either one of you what they do with their artificial intelligence programs, but I would ask, I don't know if, have you all been measured for implants or signals? Do you have implants at all? Do you know? Either one of you?
So
I'm not sure if I have. No.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm going to go ahead and answer the question that you asked a while ago. When Max died, I believe that they tried to drain me enough and attack me enough to also kill me. That's my conclusion. I was getting severely attacked, and losing Max had brought me down into lower frequencies where I could be attacked. So they sort of descended on me almost like zombies in a way. I was attacked every night to the point that I was spitting up blood, and I was brought to the doctors, to the ER. I was rushed to the ER, and I was very sick and ill, and they couldn't do anything for me. And they did say that I was dying. And Taj does know this because he went through everything with me. So that's my conclusion, that they assumed that it would harm me, pull me down enough when Max died.
Wow.
Yes.
I don't put anything past them, to be honest. Go ahead, Taj.
Yeah, I think they thought that by killing Max, they would also kill Sarah because she would be, lost without Max. So, I think at one point, a couple of points, I was quite worried for Sarah. But I think we've made it through the last year. We've called it has been the year from hell, pretty much.
Right.
But I think we're both a lot wiser and a lot stronger for it.
Well, I'm glad you were around, Taj, because that was an extra fortification for Sarah. And it was in by-oppression. I would say that your auras were connected with Max, Sarah, you and Max's auras, which would tell me that when he departed, that part of that was kind of maybe a vacuum or something that left a little bit of a hole in the energy field. And of course, when there's something like that goes on, I would say that then it's open for attack. And it's amazing to me how evil some of these people are. I can tell you point blank, I've never seen such viciousness in my entire life. I have to remove myself from people for a while, and it's just because I just have to get away. I just have to break orbit. But I can certainly understand the attacks. And when you say you were spitting up blood, I had some strange things. I had radiation toxicity. Okay, and you don't get that unless you've been interfaced with something, or it's just very rare. So I will tell you point blank, I'm pretty sure that they do strange things like that. And did you ever how did you heal yourself from that when you went to the ER? How did you recover?
So I didn't. They sent me home and said they couldn't do anything for me, that I was dying. I winded up doing a lot of energy work on myself and used diet, which for a good while I couldn't eat anything whatsoever. I started to pull up my frequency as fast as I could. And I think it's definitely also the love of my friends and my family that are very close to me, no matter what, that helped me pull through. And the fact that I have, since I was younger, I was always able to really control my body and my consciousness. So I'm able to, even if my body's really bad off, I can still sort of, through energy, stabilize it.
Right.
I can go in and out of my body. I do have a lot of memories when I was younger of in the programs being drowned, and I would be drowned and then be out of my body, and they would tell me to come back. So I already have training to come back into my body even after it shut down. So I was able to sort of use that and heal myself. I started to work on each organ. I had to get each organ under control and work on it because it had suffered so much damage. When Max died, I literally felt him die. Not only that, I gave him so much energy to try to save him. It was as if I had bled out myself. So I started to do what I could. And I will be honest, for a good while, I probably did not want to stay in this realm. And since I am very multidimensional, I go in and out of the realms. I had come to peace and thought I can just go out of this realm to him. And he was speaking with me. And, I was willing. To me, death is nothing. And I was willing to just walk out of this body to where he was. And then eventually I started having a lot of interaction, spiritual sort of messages telling me that I needed to stay here. And I found this very short movie called Rachel's Dream, and it has Kate Bensicle from Underworld, which if you remember in Underworld, it's very interesting because Underworld Celine, how she descends to the underworld and Inanna descends to the underworld, which is quite interesting series. The actress who plays in there, Kate Beckinsale, however you pronounce that. Go ahead, Paul.
Kate Beckinsale, yeah.
Yes, she plays this little short film called Rachel's Dream, where her partner, he can't stay in the realm she is, and she has to stay there to help out humanity. So I found that message in there. I found that a little bit after Max died. I found that message in there to be quite powerful in what I needed to do.
Yeah. Definitely. Wow, you've had some intensity. Now you talk about being drowned. Was that part of? I never dove into your past insofar. Where have you been with the super soldiers or the mind control? Were you pulled into a covert program as a my lab, or how was that? What was the motive behind being drowned and being resurrected? What was that from? What lifetime, or was it from the Black Science Department or something?
So I will speak about this as much as I can. A good part of it I will always refuse to speak about. What I can tell you is that there is, they have the technology to switch people in and out of timelines and do things to them. They also have control over time, over sound and light, which are used as weaponry. They're also used to program everybody every single day. What I can tell you is that there are programs running, and these programs target often what you call the offspring of the, per se, Anunnaki or the Anunnaki bloodline, the how do you call it, the blue bloods. Mm-hmm. There are programs running that trace specific DNA around the world, DNA in people who have evolved different things within themselves through many generations. And these children are targeted. These children are then used in the programs, and they're used for their abilities. So this is some of the work that I do, is to alert people that these things are happening. Mm-hmm. Just recently, I was at the Philadelphia experiment, and I really had such a deep connection to that project, because when I was younger and I was going through the realms, I went to one timeline where I actually did meet some of the guys from the Philadelphia experiment, specifically one. And I told him that I would go there and try to release the energy that was there because of the intense sort of emotional charge that went on during the project. Mm-hmm. So, everything in my life sort of links up, and it links up to things that have been done to me by those who control this world, who try to exploit, I think, those who are different, who want to come to this world to help out, and they monitor them on every single level. So I've had quite an interestingly different life than a lot of people, because I understand how the realms work, how they can switch up timelines. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, I would say that, yes, I was in programs as a child, but a lot of it I prefer not to talk about.
That's okay. No, I just was curious because it sounds like you've been through a lot. And of course, it doesn't surprise me at all, not at all, that you were pulled in and actually, on the radar, so to speak. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have a type of a royal bloodline, don't you? In France or something, don't you have some kind of a special bloodline?
I am connected to a line of dukes and another line, which I prefer probably not to speak about.
That's okay.
But yes, I am definitely connected to royal bloodline, which again, it's very well known that within royal bloodline they were different.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about that one. And Taj, what about you? Now, you've never really been picked up, have you? Were you on the radar as a child?
Not really. I don't think so. I did have a weird experience I didn't know about, which my mother told me recently, that I died when I was 9 months old. So I'm not sure what really happened there, but I sort of think I might be like a walk-in or something like that, or something else.
I was going to say, yeah, when you die, and I would say maybe soul rotation or something like that. Possible, huh?
Yeah. But I was always very, like a lot of people, very different. As a child, I was a bit of a loner, I guess you could say. I didn't really fit in anywhere. I didn't really feel like I belonged here in a lot of ways. But, growing up, I sort of ignored that and tried to fit in as best I could. And it was only probably in about 2012 when I started looking into a lot of things that I woke up, I guess. I mean, the biggest thing that woke me up was 9/11, really. And I started looking into 9/11 and things like Sandy Hook, and that drove me to places like the Basis Project and Project Camelot and those types of, websites. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, Yeah, I've always been different, but I think connecting with people like Sarah and others has sort of, woken me up even more, I think. And, there's a lot of people in the community which I feel I have a connection with. I don't really know how, but I sort of already know them before I meet them. It's very difficult to explain, but you sort of attract to people who are, I guess, sort of the same sort of frequency as you, the same energy as you. And I guess you could call them your soul family or whatever.
Star family. Yeah, I call
yeah.
them the star family, or star, yeah, that's what I call them. But I agree with you on that one. But I also think that a lot of us who are very prominent insofar as our celestial heritage goes have been targeted big time. I never saw what happened to me coming in 2004, and it did. And the only reason I'm doing radio right now is because of it. So look at how we all decided to be on radio, or at least out there after our experiences. And I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think that this is, we get pulled into things, and yet there's a benchmark in us that tells the truth and communicates data that I think is extremely important for the masses to understand. So I applaud both of you for doing what you're doing here on this world. I know it's not easy. I get like this, every day, Sarah was talking about in and out of worlds. I get that because there's part of me that just doesn't want to be here. I just feel like this is not my home. And I think I told you that, Taj, last time you interviewed me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way in our community. But I guess we should sort of just do the best that we can while we're here and try and, wake other people up along the way, I guess.
Right. And Sarah, you do multidimensional life coaching. So tell us about that.
That's the extent of that one right there. So essentially it's about sort of, let's see, how can I put this in such a way that everybody understands? So I do work with the aura, and how originally the aura was multicolored and people function at 1 to 3 colors of the spectrum. It was rainbow colored. So I speak about how, that's intertwined with food and fruits and vegetables, how they have all the colors within them, and that each dimension is tied into each different color frequency. So imagine people who only have red and black and gray and maybe even one other color in their aura, what dimensions they're tapping into, what frequencies and what emotions those go to. So too much red is very, very, it's aggression or aggressive. Too much, dark black or darker energy from gunk that you collect in your aura will make you a much darker sort of person, more psychopathic. So I do a lot of work trying to explain that colors in the aura, it's tied to your diet, which is tied to what I call God, the universe, or this force of energy that flows through everything. And by clearing out your cells and by clearing your aura and instilling more colors through various ways, you can become multidimensional. You can also activate what I call junk DNA, or the God gene. And I've actually have done a lot of work and a lot of videos on this. So I'm trying to sort of, go through it quickly because it would take the rest of the show to explain this on an in-depth level. So sort of I'm trying to get people to instill multidimensionality back within themselves. And that can be done through various ways. It does take some work, but it's very, very... It's very beneficial to everybody, because once you instill colors, imagine somebody who only has red, black, and a lot of gray, maybe some blue. They're not experiencing the colors of orange, of green, of yellow, and those are higher emotions, and those connect you to the higher realms. So they're in an emotional prison. So they're living their life in an emotional prison, literally. They're living their life in an interdimensional prison, and they're living their life in a prison within their thoughts, because the more colors that you have in your aura, the more emotions you have, and the more full spectrum of emotions, also more creativity. I think that creativity is deeply tied to God source, God energy. Also, the more successful you will be in life, the more happier you will be in life, and the more multidimensional. If you only have lower colors, you're going to be accessing lower dimensions. If you have full color spectrum, I believe that tunes people into all of the dimensions. And also, you have to think about how emotionally our colors affect others. If you ever do a test on an animal and you send an animal green, an animal that's very upset, if you send it green and keep sending it the color green, you're going to see that animal slow down, and it's going to become soft, and it's going to become actually quite docile, because green is a heart color. So it's tapping into its heart energy. You're giving it heart energy, and the animal's energetic field will respond. Babies do too. So, the colors we're putting out to others are affecting us on every single level. Per se, that somebody who has had a lot of trauma, they're going to have a lot of red in their aura, the anger from trauma, the hurt from trauma, and they're going to attract others who, essentially have the same trauma and who are messed up themselves. But if you change your colors, you're going to attract beautiful people, and you're going to stop attracting people who will use you or harm you, because the colors they're putting out are saying, hey, either I am I can be loved, or I don't deserve love, or I deserve good things, or I deserve bad things from the universe and from everything and everybody around me. So essentially, you can tune everything through colors. This is some of the work that I do.
That's great. I love the rainbow body, and I do believe in the rainbow diet, by the way. I remember reading about that a long time ago, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I have to tell you, I'm the worst one to wear black all the time. I wear black way too much, and I know that I started wearing that after my induction. So, I mean, I trained as a martial artist, and I used to wear black in my uniform, but I can tell you, yeah, that's very true. We have to shift gears and vibration, and that's a very good point you make right there. And you know what's interesting also, Sarah, is that I know, and you probably are aware of this, but psychological warfare departments use a lot of color for mind control. And of course, that's something that they used. And especially, I remember pattern recognition in colors when I was first inducted. So I don't know how much you all know, but that definitely, they do, yeah, they do that. So good point you make.
You think about it.
Go ahead.
How it affects the subconscious. Look at in commercials how they'll blink colors, and that affects the subconscious. There's, even when you're sitting at a stoplight, the three colors, you say something 3 times to a person, or even if you think that thought 3 times towards a person, it affects that person's subconscious or conscious. So you think about in the series Fringe, when there's an episode where they erase somebody's mind, and the light blinks 3 times. Now think about people sitting at stoplights, and it blinks 3 times.
Right. Yeah. That's very interesting. Well, I think everybody's under mass mind control. I don't know what both of your opinions are, but I would tell you, I'm pretty sure, it just seems like everybody's been indoctrinated to some degree. What's your take on that?
Oh, for me, at least, I would say most of the world. And it's, I line that to almost the Bible said that most of the world was fooled by, quote, the alphabet or alpha beast, which is another thing that I need to go to and into how that's all represents the lower chakra system, and not the lower chakra system that's not connected with a higher chakra system in the heart. And it's funny because we used to speak in colors and emotions, and we speak with the alphabet, and in French, bête and beast means beast, the alpha beast. So literally words are the lowest form of communication, as we originally did not speak with words, and thus when you did not speak with words, you couldn't lie. Words and speech allow us, the lowest form of speech, allow people to lie. If you cannot lie when you speak through emotions or telepathy.
Right. What about toning? What's your impression of the toning?
Sorry, can you ask that question again? I didn't hear you.
Sure, that's okay. What's your impression of toning or sounding? Just toning for healing, or have you done that at all?
I haven't. Maybe I know it under another word or another thing. Sometimes I know things under feelings rather than names.
Well, it's a sounding. It's just basically a toning that and I've had this done to me, but it's really nice. You can have people tone over your crown chakra and actually open up energy depending on the frequency they're using. So that's something that I think is, you just strike me someone who's able to sound with your voice. So I was curious if you had toned. So you might want to look into that. That's probably something you had from another lifetime. But yeah. Definitely. What about you, Taj? What's your impression?
What about mind control? Yeah, I would say the majority of people are under some kind of mind control. And I think for a lot of people to sort of snap them out of it, it takes like maybe a traumatic event, to wake them up. And even in a lot of cases, I have a lot of friends who are awake, but they're not like awake on the same level as me. I think there are different levels of being awake. You know, a lot of friends of mine, they know what's going on. They know what's going on with the governments and the financial system and stuff like that. But when you get into a lot more deeper things, you know, talking about MK Ultra, super soldiers, things like that, they find that quite hard to swallow for some reason. You know, so they're quite happy believing, oh, you know, there's a new world order and they're all controlling us through the financial system and this type of thing. But when you go and start talking about mind control, MK Ultra, super soldiers, aliens and UFOs, you sort of lose a lot of people. So I sort of have like two groups of friends. I have the friends where I can talk about this kind of stuff, and the other people who I don't really talk about this kind of stuff when I go out. And I think, yeah, there are different levels, I think, of being awake. You can be like fully awake, like a lot of us, and you can be like awake, you know, and aware of what's going on around you, but you don't necessarily, you know, do anything about it. You know, you just accept it, I guess, in a way. You say, okay, well, this is just the way the world is. We just have to accept it. And there's not really much I can do about it as, you know, an individual. But I think more people need to get out of that mindset and realize that, you know, I suppose coming together in our community, we can do something about it.
I agree. Well, it's a false matrix, as you all know. And that's the whole thing, is waking people up and getting them to snap out of it. But I can tell you, some of them don't want to wake up. And what I really think is important is that those of us who are on a higher resonance wave really do navigate together and start working together more. So I saw a lot of enemy patterning at the mind control summits and the super soldier summits. I see a lot of people triggered, and I don't like that. You know, you just can't do that. You know, we all know that we're star people. We just need to keep ascending. And I think that the majority of people who don't even have an opportunity to know that they're star beings or even know their celestial heritage, I mean, that to me that's sad. You know, at least we can say we know ourselves to some degree, right? But a lot of people don't. And I agree with you too. I've had people who are, you know, I know people who have been through mind control and a lot of different programs, and we can talk. And there are regular Joes out there that I can't talk to at all. And that's kind of a bummer. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But how are things over in the UK with you over there right now? What's the pulse over there energetically?
It's okay, I guess. I guess the energy here is very different to the US. I think Sarah will probably know because she's lived in the UK and she's lived in the US, so she's probably more aware of that. But I guess we're not under so much mind control here in the UK compared to the US. I think it's quite intense in the US. I could be wrong, but
it is. Don't you think so, Sarah?
I would say it's one of the worst places in the world, honestly, including with the sound technology that they use for crowd control here, which I'm always tuning into, and it hurts pretty bad. I would say it is.
And you're in California, right?
I am in California. I'm in San Diego right now, and I, you know, it's okay here. I'm actually having a really nice time here with my friends. They're very, very lovely, and I've had some friends that have traveled from across the world over here to see me, which is amazing. But as for at least Mid-America seems to just be inundated. However, how do you say that word?
Inundated, or
yes, with really a lot of sound weaponry. I've noticed this.
Yeah, you have sensitive hearing then, right? Do you get tinnitus, or how does it affect you?
I literally feel it like a wall that hits me over and over again, or almost like a sledgehammer in a way.
Yeah, you're really sensitive. Well,
yes,
they're running a lot of technology. You know, California is one of the hubs for all this experimentation. I know that's where they initially ran the interface with me from. It was actually from California, not Colorado. So yeah, they're pretty intense. And then, you know, Colorado too is a real heavy area. It's they just slam you with covert technology here.
I was in Colorado briefly last week just for my flight. I had to go to the Denver airport. I didn't get to see the Merkles or anything like that. I only had, I think, a half an hour layover, so I wasn't able to see anything. But yes, it's interesting because when I was tracking the AI system, I tracked it over to California. I actually tracked it somewhere near San Francisco rather than anywhere else. That's interesting you say that.
That's very interesting. Well, I know that there's a lot of technology here, but yeah, the ones that interfaced me were definitely out in California. There's no doubt about that one. And so, and also, you do have the telepathy. You do you get constant interface? What is your, how do you function from day to day? Do you have bombardment, or are you able to have clarity?
There's a nice verse in the Bible that says angels do not sleep, and I really like that because I really never sleep. I'm always sort of connected or out of my body. When I go to quote sleep at night, I'm not in my body. I go out. So, I am interacting with a lot of different stuff. I have went into the AI system, literally into the AI system once. It's just energy. So if you can crack energy codes or hack energy codes, you can do that. So I had hacked into that system once. It's what I do is I do a shield around myself and even the whole area where I'm at, so that shield sort of keeps everything out, and I'm aware if anything tries to enter, and that works quite well for me. I've been able to sort of do that since I was a child. And like you said a while ago, when Max died, you thought it might have created a hole, and yes, this is very true. It did, and it allowed it so that I wasn't able to protect myself where I usually was able to, because of the trauma it had done to my energetic and auric field, and it had really messed up my shielding. So, and that's why after that I was shown that I needed to, that if in life we have issues shielding, we should wear a seashell, because the shell has that energy, and if we cannot ourselves integrate it how we should, we can take the seashell and wear the seashell, and that will imprint shielding back into our auric field. So around that time, I was using a lot of seashells to merge that code onto my field so that I could build my shields back up.
I didn't hear that before. That's interesting. Yeah, I love seashells too. That's really nice. So that's good information right there. And I totally agree with that. Yeah, you have to keep yourself shielded and fortified, because boy, so many things are going on right now, whether it's technological or just plain crazy voodoo hitmen or whatever. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff to deal with. You sound great. You sound like you've been transforming and just ascending, and that's really good. And so do you, Taj. Both of you sound really good energetically. So it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what do you think what is your impression of this solar eclipse coming up? Do you have any foreboding energies that you're feeling, or for both of you, what do you think is coming in with this solar eclipse, if anything?
Personally, I'm not sure really. I mean, you always hear these stories when an event's about to happen, like an eclipse or like a planetary alignment, that it's some kind of omen that something bad is going to happen. I guess from experience, I'm not sure if anything bad will happen during this particular solar eclipse, but I think on an energetic level, it's very interesting how the solar eclipse works. And I think in a lot of ways it will leave, when it happens, the solar eclipse actually happens, it will leave the planet vulnerable on an energetic level, and it may be open to attack. That's the only thing I can see. How they will use that, I'm not sure. They may use things like CERN to open up portals during the eclipse, or they may use other types of weapons, but to bring in whatever they want to bring in, because I believe during the solar eclipse, the energies change dramatically, and the darker forces may use that opportunity to carry out whatever agenda, bring forth the agenda that they want to do. That's my take on it anyway.
I agree. I think you made some good points there also. Yeah, the vulnerability does come to mind, but I think this planet has been so bombarded with so many things already that I think the shields are really getting slammed. I mean, as far as that goes, the life force and the prana, a lot of hijacking going on for sure. What do you think, Sarah?
I think this solar eclipse is something almost like Lazarus and the stone being rolled back from the tomb. I think there's something very powerful that will happen with this. The Big Ben is going to be sort of shut down on the solar eclipse.
Oh, is that right?
So time itself.
Yeah, Big Ben is being turned off at noon on the
Why?
21st. For 4 years, it's undergoing some repair work.
That's
And
interesting.
they chose that particular day to do that, so, which was interesting.
Very interesting, if you ask me. Wow.
And also, if you think about it, time sort of Greenwich Mean Time is all time connects from the UK. Greenwich Mean Time is 0 hour, and then you have all the timelines come out from there. So it's interesting that they chose to shut down Big Ben, which is right by Greenwich, on that particular day.
Yeah, very interesting right there. Do you all feel like you're on an alternate timeline? Because I certainly do. Do you feel like they've switched something here? Like we're supposed to be on another timeline?
I would say that they have the technology to change timelines, and they have. But you see, that technology was not originally theirs. And eventually they're going to lose all that ability, because they should have used those things for good, not for evil. And since they have used technology, including light technology and sound technology, for evil, including change in timelines, it's all going to be removed from them. So when I think about synthetic timelines, that's all going to fade out. And originally, the flow of the universe, or the timelines meant for humanity, will merge in, and it will be absolutely amazing when that happens. And I do see that happening in the near future.
That's nice. I like that, because I agree with that too. I don't want it to be this false matrix and these artificial timelines, as you were talking about. Yeah, I want to see the real energies connected in, and not this obfuscation. What do you think, Taj?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think in a lot of ways, the timeline has been, I guess, hijacked in a lot of ways and manipulated. I don't believe we should be where we are at the moment. I think we should be on a different timeline, but obviously, other people have different ideas about that. If you look at the way the world is today, there's a lot of, a lot of bad things, I guess you could say, are happening around the world, with wars and all kinds of things. And, I think we should be on a better timeline, really. Although I guess it could be worse. I guess it is. I think it's a constant battle in a way between good and evil. So I think timelines switch constantly. I think they try and do things to switch us over to a bad timeline, and then things happen to counteract that in a lot of ways. I think it's a constant sort of thing. The timelines are always changing. Depending on the events that are happening around the world, and even individual timelines as well as the collective timeline.
I agree. Well, it certainly seems like they are trying to create a different time stream. There's no doubt about that one. And what's really interesting, and I had this conversation with somebody today earlier, but I always feel like there's like it's almost like I'm a clone, and the most of me is already off planet in multidimensional space. I don't know if you get that at all or not, but I certainly have. Nothing's been the same after I was pulled into that program. Nothing. As a matter of fact, the more aware I become of where I've been, the more I realize that everything is off. Everything's just plain off. So I don't know how you all feel, but I can tell you, what is your impression of the cloning in general? Just being cloned. What is your take on that? If you want to talk about it.
Go ahead, Taj. I'll let you go ahead and.
About cloning, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't really know too much about the cloning side of things. I mean, I know some of the stories from people about cloning centers and such. I do believe that they are cloning certain people because they have, I guess, abilities in a way. I don't like using the word super soldier, but that's the closest word I could use. So I'm sure there are, military bases where they have clones of certain individuals and are sort of using them as weapons, I guess. But then, there are also people, as far as things like transhumanism, life extension, that's another angle, creating clones and then transferring your consciousness to a younger body, a younger clone body. But I guess a lot of this stuff is hidden. And, back in the 80s, I think, in the UK, they cloned a sheep. I think it was, Dolly the sheep. But that was like 30 years ago. So they must have advanced, to human trials by now, I'd have thought. I mean, obviously the ethics behind it is questionable. creating clones.
Mm.
Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Right.
And of course, things like the energy levels and stuff like that. If you create a clone of someone, your energy is split between yourself and the clone. If something happens to that clone, what happens to you? If you transfer your consciousness to a clone and your body dies, what happens to you? You're living in a clone. Are you still human? Is your soul still there? Is your soul somewhere else? It brings up a lot of questions about humanity itself, really. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Yeah, definitely.
It is. Well, it's interesting because I'm familiar with the EEG cloning and heterodyning, which really is about cloning a personality onto a target with a heterodyning program with a signal. So that is something that the Covert Intel has been doing for a very long time. But that's almost like a dim copy or version of somebody else overlaid onto a target. So when you see people with like maybe multiple personalities, or say they're creating, or all of a sudden there's an alter kicking in, that could be something simulated and actually created by that. So that's why I was asking about the clones, and that's why those of us who have been through certain projects, it seems to me like they have been tampering like that to some degree with heterodyning. And when people just have all these awakenings, or they have a screen memory, you have to ask, where did it come from, and where was the source that transmitted that screen memory. So that was very interesting. But yeah, I think they're trying to create a dim version of who we are, and they can't, because dimming down someone's light and their star body is just in my opinion, is against universal law. I don't think they should be doing that at all. So I don't know what your impression is on that, if any of you'd like to comment.
So, for me at least, I think, when I was younger, I had battled this sort of shadow being to have control of myself. I remember that they were messing with me very much until I won the shadow being. And it was quite a vicious battle. And I won total sovereignty over my body. And I haven't had any issues with that. Have they tried to do things to me? They have, but they were never successful after that. They had put a quite strong being to try to traumatize me enough and be able to control me through that. I remember when I faced this, I had meditated for hours and hours, and I do meditate still every single day, most of the time for 2 to 3 hours, if not more. I have meditated 8 hours. So wow. I go deep in my subconscious. When Max died, I would meditate just days and days and days. I had to go into my subconscious and gather the different energetic pieces of myself and bring them back to put them back together to create recreate my energetic body, because my physical body was dying as the energetic blueprint of my body was scattered. And the physical, it manifests from the energetic realm. So if you're messed up on the energetic realms, it's going to manifest into the physical realms. So essentially, I haven't had any issues with them being able to impose anything, but sorry. So I haven't had any issues with them trying to, as in they have tried, but they weren't successful in imposing anything onto me.
That's
sorry,
good.
I've sort of blanked out here because I was.
That's okay.
Okay, so I was trying to go ahead.
No, you're making sense though. Well, I'm glad that you were able to protect yourself from that. And what came to mind was soul retrieval. Did you feel like you needed to do anything pertaining to the soul retrieval, or do you even subscribe to something like that?
Okay, yeah. So that's what I want to say. When I did battle this entity, it affected everything. I had meditated for probably 4 hours that day. I had meditated outside. And I went to this specific spot that I was drawn to. I was still in France at the time and quite young. And then I saw the being. I got up after meditation and I started to walk. And I was walking along a river in France. And I saw the being and I could see him. And it's interesting because a lot of people see shadows. And I believe those shadow beings are affecting them. They're keeping them in sort of amnesia. And you can go back, and these shadow beings are tied to jinn or stuff like that if you do a lot of research. Now, I battled this being. I could see him, and I battled him. And as soon as I battled him, I remember it rained so bad.
it rained, and I could feel like I had sovereignty over myself. And after that, I was able to tell myself, sort of even physically, I believe that I have had that power over myself all of these years to tell my body what to do. And, even on an energetic level, physical level, that gave me that sort of power, where people are not pilots of themselves. They're all autopilots, and these beings sort of have control over them, even, sort of their emotions and even their physical.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, totally. You have to be in control, otherwise somebody else will, right? As they say. But yeah,
I think more than something else, there's a lot of different beings that feed off of, lower beings that feed off of humanity. And you can read about that. You read, whether they're archons or whatever you want to call them, archonic forces, or even the demiurge demons. A lot of these things are similar. They're different names for the same thing. They're just, yes. And so you do know, if you do a lot of research, you come to find out that there are beings that feed off of humanity, and multiple beings, lower beings. And once you become aware of that and you throw them out and you kick them out, then you do have full sovereignty over yourself. And it does make you, make you multidimensional.
I agree. And Sarah, we're going to have for a break already. You're listening to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. My wonderful guests tonight are Sarah Adams and Taj. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.